because it feels good to feel the life moving through you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to our Sunday morning message this morning for Carolina Center for Spiritual Awakening, talking about the energy of everything. And last night I was joking, and I was like, I'm just not sure what the back of my phone needs to hear in the morning. I just don't know. And I was like having a little, moment of the fact that I'm used to seeing these beautiful faces looking back at me and feeling the energy of the room and having that awesome band behind me. And I was having a moment, I was thinking I'm just talking to my phone. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm talking to the world. But mainly, what am I doing? I'm talking to myself. When we pray, we're reminding ourselves of the truth. When we speak what we know, we're reminding ourselves of the truth. So I sat and I thought, what do I need to remember? In this moment, what do I need to hear? What do I need to remember? And I started thinking about how exciting it is to be a religious scientist at this moment in time. A religious scientist, someone who studies the teaching of science of mind, or someone who follows unity. Any of these new thought principles, new thought teachings that are life-affirming and that believe that we are one with the one that created us, and that our thoughts and our feelings have an influence on circumstances. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So I started thinking about how that excites me. Yesterday was a practitioner class day. We spent 9 hours in Zoom together, but it was actually a lot more fun than you might think. And we were delving into, the entire day was all spent on Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. So many people come to me and they say, I want to change in my relationships. I want to change in how I feel and how I move through life. And when I suggest that they make some changes about how they show up in life, how they think, how they speak, how they show up in the world, they're like, yeah, but that's not really me. Well, right. But the me that was the one that created the circumstance that you don't like is not the same me that's going to create the circumstances that you do like. You follow me? So, yeah. So we were diving into this yesterday, and I love it. I love it so much because it brings together this beautiful mental and spiritual science we talk about in the science of mind. It brings it together with quantum science and explains it in such a beautiful way. But that's the way my mind works. I know that it's not it for everyone, so I'm going to try and break it down for you this morning. Break it down. And let me just start by saying, though, that some people think that science of mind, unity, other new thought philosophies are all positive thinking. Now, granted, a positive thought's going to be a whole lot more effective for you than a negative one. I highly recommend it. But positive thinking is not all this stuff is about. It's actually not going to be effective hardly at all compared to positive thinking plus feeling the feeling and then putting that in action in our everyday. So our thoughts plus our feelings plus our actions. Quoting a little Joe Dispenza for you. I love one of his favorite quotes that I love the most is that our personality creates our personal reality. Well, those things I just mentioned create our personality. The way we show up in the world, that's our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And whatever those are, that personality of us, that way we show up, that's contributing to our personal reality. So, yeah. So here we are in lockdown, and we're thinking, some people are like, yeah, but I'm in lockdown. Guess what? There's a power for good in the universe, and it's not locked out of lockdown. That's exciting. The power for good in the universe is not locked out of lockdown. It's right there with us all along. It's right there with us. If we never leave our houses, it's right there with us, and we can tap into it. We can live from it. In the book of Acts, it says, in God we live and move and have our being. Ernest Holmes quoted that phrase a lot. That's that quote a lot. Because whether you call it the quantum field, the quantum reality, whether you call it unified field, divine intelligence, God, Lord, love, life, we're living and moving and having our being in this cosmic soup. But let's take it down to what is that cosmic soup made of. Let's go back to our quantum world, go back to our scientific world. It's made of atoms, right? It's made of atoms. And we used to think the atoms were like these little tiny BBs. They were hard and solid. And now science has revealed, as you know, I'm sure, that atoms are just bouncing energy. It's just energy. There's more nothing than something inside the atom. And so this energy, it's all intermingling with the energy of everything. Our energy is intermingling with the energy of everything. The energy that is my hand that reaches over and takes this cup, takes a sip, moves the cup to a different shelf. The same energy that is this hand that moved that cup is the same energy that are your thoughts that move your circumstances in your life. Because our thoughts are energy too. Everything is energy. Consciousness is energy. So that's why this is an exciting time because we get to control how our consciousness evolves or stays the same. It's up to us. Our energy is consciousness. It touches the events just like my hand touched that cup. It touches the circumstances of our lives. But you see, it touches the circumstances of the world too, but we have to do the inside work first. We have to touch our own consciousness, our own circumstances, our own events in our own life first before we can create this world that works for everyone on that outside bigger picture. So during this time of time out, that's what I think we're in right now. We've been put in time out. So during this time of time out, it's time to tune in. It's time to tune in. Well, I think it's time to tune in. I hope that for you it's time to tune in because that's our biggest opportunity right now. But we have choice. We have free will. Thank you, God. We can stay in scurry. We can be in scurry mode. We can run around and be busy. And just really stick our head in the sand. It's the equivalent if we stay too busy to be with what is. We're just putting our head in the sand and not paying attention to what wants to be revealed by the soul within us. What within us wants to grow in our own soul so that we can be the tipping point for humanity to grow as a collective consciousness. So that's what we're being given the opportunity to do, is to use this time to our advantage. Now more than ever is a time to release old patterns. These things that have been holding us back from being our full potential here in this life. On Tuesday nights, I'm teaching a class based on the book Taking the Leap by Pema Chodron. It's not too late to join us. Come on, it's a great time. It's on Tuesday nights. I'll tell you more about it during the announcements. But the subtitle of the book is Freeing Ourselves from Old Habits and Fears. So this, more than ever, is the time to do that. Because as Dr. Joe talks about in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, we have memorized, hear this, we've memorized the emotions of guilt, of lack, of unworthiness, fear, separation, frustration, anger. The next time you have a moment where you just want to explode in anger, stop. The next time you want to be so frustrated because things aren't going the way you think they should be going, stop. Take a breath and say, wait a second, this is a memorized emotion. And I'm in control. I'm in charge. This is a memorized emotion. So yesterday, I'm teaching class, and we decided to take lunch on our own and just go sit in our yards and be in the sun because it was such a beautiful day. Excuse me, I'm going to use my quantum energy again and move this cup. I love it when there's a little tiny giggle from behind the camera. Okay, so I came in the house and I was making food and asked Angie, you want me to make you some food too? And she was like, sure. So I got 2 plates. We have these really heavy, thick plates. I've had them for years. We've been meaning to get new ones because they've gotten old and they're not really what we want. And so that's beside the point. Not really. It's kind of the point. So anyway, it's part of the point. So I had these plates stacked in a very precarious place, and I knew that, but I thought, it's okay. It's one of those intuitive moments. I knew I should move the dishes, but I didn't move the dishes, and then the dishes crashed, and they're really big and they're really heavy, and it hit me in the shin. So it hurt, and they smashed into a million pieces. So I had a moment of this old memorized emotion of I wanted to be mad. I wanted to be frustrated. How could this be happening right now in my kitchen? Well, it's easy to say because it was easy to follow that train of thought of how it happened. But in that moment, I was in the memorized emotion for just a second of frustration until I remembered that this is exactly what we're talking about today. In this class, we were talking about breaking free of memorized emotions and choosing in that moment, how do I want to be right now? Do I want to be mad? I'm having a great day. No, I don't want to be mad. How do I want to be? Who do I want to be? I want to be peaceful because that feels good. I'm going to choose that. All right, so I did, and then I even found the silver lining. I'm like, we have those new plates in our registry. We'll just go on there with a little gift card we got for our wedding, and we'll buy our new plates right now. So why don't we do that? So I looked for the silver lining. I found it, and I chose the emotion I wanted to live from. Now, that's a tiny, tiny example, because sometimes right now we may have loved ones who are sick. We may be freaked out by the media. We may be a lot of things that feel a whole lot bigger than broken plates, but this principle, this loop is the same. This loop that gets created in us. I'm going to talk about the loop in just a minute. The loop that we get on if we're not careful. But we're being called to trust that there's a higher power moving through us. There's a higher power moving through all of creation, all of life. And it's not some distant deity. It's moving through us, expressing as us. And it's expressing powerfully, more and more powerfully, to the degree that we are aware of it and we're in cooperation with it. So as we make peace and order and kindness and love and compassion and health and harmony and prosperity and all those things, as we make those the priorities in our lives, our personal lives, we become the tipping point, as I said in the prayer. I felt myself going to that thought in the prayer. We become the tipping point for humanity that causes it to be seen out there on the grander scale. But only as we do it within our own lives individually first, because it's futile to think that we're going to affect out there coming from a place other than what we want it to look like out there. That's not going to happen. We have to be it first. And since fear breeds fear, we have to be conscious of that. If we want more of that, then that's what we're going to get if we're staying in that loop. But guess what? Love and possibility, oh man, that's more contagious than anything. Love and possibility spreads. It is a contagion, and it's a contagion we want to spread. So we're interconnected with each other, and the more that we develop this way of being for our own individual lives, the more that we, again, affect the tipping point for all of humanity. And here's the thing to remember, though. We're not just connected to each other. When I talk about the energy of everything and the intermingling of all the atoms of everything, since everything is energy, we're also interconnected with the planet. Did you know that for the first time in decades, people in the northern state of India, Punjab, they can now see the Himalayas? For the first time in decades, because we're on lockdown and pollution has drastically decreased. I haven't heard this before as the gospel yet, but I would dare to say that probably people in LA are now noticing that there's foothills over here and an ocean over there. I've had friends who say they've lived there before for months and thought, wow, I thought there was some mountains around here somewhere, and then one day the smoke clears, right? So we are in an interconnected relationship with the earth as well, and right now we're giving her a chance to heal while we're just staying put for a moment and working on our own stuff. I was even having a conversation last night, and someone brought up the fact that it actually feels like April right now in Charlotte. I hadn't thought about it until he said this, and I thought, wow, that's true. For the last several years, April's been feeling like July in Charlotte. It's been feeling hot and like the middle of summer. Right now, it feels like April in Charlotte, and it's magical, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. Pardon me. So another thing that came up having a discussion last night was the superpower we have of perspective. One of our superpowers I've already mentioned is looking for the good, and that's another way of looking for it in our world, and how the world is using this time out, the earth is using this time out for being clearer and healed. But another superpower that we have is the ability to choose our perspective. We choose our perspective. Now, it chooses us for a while until we become aware. It chooses us based on our memories, based on our past experiences. But as we become aware and we live mindfully aware, we get to choose our perspective. We get to go, okay, I could look at this a different way. So last night, we were visiting with friends last night. They came and put their chairs at the curb, and we put our chairs by the front porch. And we actually had interaction with people besides the two of us. It was fun. So we're sitting there talking, and a helicopter flies over. And as the helicopter flew over, 3 different things happened. One person thought, oh, I wonder if that's a medic taking someone to urgent care, to an urgent care situation, taking someone, a patient, right? So a medic helicopter. Next person thought, oh man, somebody's on the loose. We might want to go inside. There's somebody going to be running through the neighborhood in a minute. There's somebody on the loose. Police helicopter. Third perspective. He says, oh, I thought that's just how rich people were traveling these days. Right? 3 different perspectives, one helicopter. 3 different perspectives that follow this. 3 different perspectives that created 3 different things. You see, 3 different things are the thoughts, the chemicals that relate to the thoughts, and the feelings that relate to the chemicals, and then come back to the thought. That's the loop I was getting ready to tell you about. So the perspective that we have can either produce stress hormones, and from the fearful thought of there's a convict coming through the yard any minute, and that was a police helicopter, or even the stressful thoughts of not that this person was thinking that, but if you see a medic helicopter right now, you might be thinking, oh gosh, is that anybody I know? Is it COVID? Is it spreading? Is it worse? Right? And you might be thinking stressful thoughts in that perspective. Or if you're thinking, that's how rich people travel. I think I could use a helicopter. I'd like to have it. I think I'll put that on the vision board. I'm going to get a helicopter. Those are going to produce different chemicals in our bodies that produce different results. So I'm going to circle back to that in 1 second. But first I want to talk about how that ties together with something that we also have the ability to do that a lot of other creatures can't do, but it's not necessarily a positive thing. And that is we can go into fight or flight mode in our bodies from a thought. We can have a thought, and it can take us into fight or flight and keep us there from nothing ever happening other than a thought. We're the only creature, special, lucky us, we're the only creature that can do that. Take ourselves into fight or flight and stay there when nothing even happened, just a thought in our heads, right? So we can take ourselves into fight or flight and stay there and keep it going, keep the stress hormones flowing and pumping, which is causing damage when we stay there. We're not meant to stay there. We're meant to outrun the bear or avoid something else that's trying to hurt us, but we're not meant to stay there. Because those chemicals, when we keep them running in our bloodstream, there we go, when we keep it running, it's causing damage physically and mentally. But also, it's blocking us consciously. It's blocking us spiritually. Because it's not possible to be in survival mode and in creation mode at the same time. It's not possible to be in survival mode and creation mode at the same time. And we are co-creative beings that are, we're meant to co-create things that other people call miracles. We're meant to do that co-creative dance with the infinite. But we can't do that when we're constantly in that loop of think a thought. It's a fearful thought. It creates a chemical. That chemical creates a feeling. That feeling takes us back to another fearful thought. It takes us to another chemical, another feeling, back to another fearful thought. And we stay on that loop. We're not able to disengage from that and go back to that place of making peace and order and kindness and compassion and love and harmony a priority in our own lives. No, when we're in that, we go back to the memorized emotions of guilt, of shame, of separation, of fear, agitation, aggravation, unworthiness, all those things. And then we're just doing our best to get through the day. Now, I understand if anything's going to cause you to be in a place of doing your best to get through the day, it's going to be a global pandemic. I get it. So let yourself off the hook if you're feeling lately like you're just trying to get through the day, because that's okay. That is okay. Breathe that for a second. Breathe into that. It's okay. You're not messing up. You're not less spiritual. It's just okay. And just like that, you can shift it. It's a beautiful ability that we have to shift it just like that, to go from the medic or the police helicopter to the, helicopter. That's going to be a fun way to travel. Just like that, we can shift that perspective. We can keep breaking the loop of fear. It's something now we have plenty of time on our hands, so we can dedicate that time to breaking that loop of fear and stress and survival, and keeping ourselves committed to being willing, to being in a place of acceptance and faith. Yeah, doesn't that feel better? Being in a place of willingness, acceptance, and faith. And willing to do what? Willing to wait out the cloud, as that Mark Nepo reading that Angie shared. Wait out the cloud, the half-bud waiting out the cloud. But not waiting it out like, I'm just going to hide down here until this is all over. No, we don't have to do that. We are co-creative, beautiful beings, living and moving and having our being from that place of the divine love and intelligence of the universe. So we're waiting out that cloud. We can have the willingness to wait out that cloud with an expectancy of good. From a place of faith and expectancy of good. So I have some affirmations I want to close with this morning. Feel free to just say them as loud as you want to say them in your own space there. You can say along with me. The first one is this: I have a willingness to believe that somehow the circumstances of my life are working out for a greater good. I'll say it again. I have a willingness to believe that somehow the circumstances of my life are working out for a greater good. Next one. Oh, I love this one. I accept that there's a power for good at the center and the circumference of my life. I accept there's a power for good at the center and the circumference of my life. I accept there's a power for good at the center and the circumference of my life. And I'll leave you with my last and favorite one. And this one came to me this morning, and I was just saying it. I was saying it, and it's this. I am armed with a mighty faith that nothing and no one is more powerful than the divine pattern of life. I am armed with a mighty faith that nothing and no one is more powerful than the divine pattern of life. You are armed with that same mighty faith to the degree that you choose it. Say it with me. I am armed with a mighty faith that nothing and no one is more powerful than the divine pattern of life. That is the energy of everything. That is our ability to co-create, to know that this divine power for good in the universe is not locked out of lockdown. It's right there with us. To know that we can use this time out as a time to tune in and be conscious of breaking our patterns of memorized emotions that don't serve us, and being in a place of committing to cultivating peace in every step, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, to cultivating order and kindness and love and health and happiness, harmony, connections, joy. I accept that there is a power for good at the center and the circumference of my life. And I am armed with a mighty faith. Thank you, God. So it is.